Hello, Wellness Warriors. Every week we do a show called Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. And we talk about health, wellness, weight loss, mental health, just trying to better ourselves generally. This week, Patrick has decided I'm not allowed to know what we're talking about. So what are we talking about, Patrick?
We have a really fun video this week. We're going to prove very scientifically that a calorie is not a calorie. The whole idea that, to lose weight, we need a calorie deficit. And so we're going to show, I did find an article that was very interesting from a source that not particularly keto friendly, but reading it made a whole lot of sense. And reading that, I was not frustrated by the article.
And he didn't share that with me.
So 6 reasons, but we're going to talk 6 reasons why a calorie isn't a calorie. The first idea we talked about last week is fructose versus glucose. The article says that, ghrelin, I think you already talked about ghrelin. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone, and fructose is stimulating it way much higher than glucose.
Whoa. Okay.
So
I did not
you
know
don't
that.
Okay.
So ghrelin is more stimulated by fruit, this magical thing that people say we should always eat. And what's wrong with us keto people for not eating it?
So fructose leads to higher ghrelin level.
Which means that you're going to eat more.
Yep. Consuming a lot of fructose can cause insulin resistance, abdominal fat gain, increased triglycerides, blood sugar, and small dense LDL compared to the same number of calories from glucose.
I like how they hide fatty liver in abdominal weight gain.
Yeah.
It causes fatty liver, people. But yes, it's that's horrible. I mean, horrible. We'll leave it at horrible.
Yeah.
I have so much more to say, but I want to hear what else you have to say.
No, but it's the whole idea that even though fructose and glucose provide the same number of calories, so it's 4 calories per gram, okay? Fructose fructose has way more negative effects than glucose.
Oh, that's why they're saying a calorie isn't calorie. Oh, I get it now. They're saying that the fructose damages your health more than a glucose. So a fructose molecule damages your health more than a glucose molecule. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Well done.
So as keto people, we buy the first one 100%.
100%.
100%. Okay. The second point, the thermic effect of food is a measure of how different foods increase energy expenditure due to energy required to digest, absorb, and metabolize nutrients. So, according to the studies, the thermic effect of the macros, fat 2-3%, carbs 6-8%, and protein 25-30%. So what they mean by that is protein takes basically 25-30% more energy than carbs, where it's at 6-8, and fat 2-3%.
So basically, they're talking about how much energy does it take for us to process each of these foods. And basically, if I understand well, it takes less energy to process fat than it does to process carbohydrates.
Than it does to process proteins.
Well, I'm not even going to talk about protein for a second because carbohydrates and fats are the 2 energy sources. So if you think about it from a very logical point of view, if it costs me more energy to get energy out of my energy source, that's not logical, right? If you're taking in an energy source because you want to use the energy source to build your body and to do stuff. So if I have to process that energy source more to do the same amount that if I was eating fat, I wouldn't, right? It's costing me energy to do this, right? So of course then carbohydrates become a silly way of getting energy.
Okay, so that's interesting. So if we go fat 3%, just take those numbers, fat 3%, carbs 8%, and protein 30%, the higher range, that means that fat is a much more efficient energy source than carbs.
And I'm going to point something out to you, and that's why I keep pulling protein out. Protein is not an energy source. I'm going to put it like this, because Dr. Jason Fung said this the best. Our bodies are not stupid. If I've got firewood in my backyard and it's freezing on a winter day, I am not going to burn my furniture. And that's exactly what you'd be doing if you have either fat or carbs in your body, but you're burning protein. That's burning your furniture. So even though they're saying 30%, of course it's 30%, it's not supposed to be used as an energy source. It's a building block. So I'm only looking at the fat versus carbs because those are the two that would actually be used as energy. And the process of getting energy out of carbohydrates clearly it's not a efficient way compared to the process of getting it out of fat.
Because at the same time, like the idea probably behind the 8% of the carbs is that your system needs to get it out of your system and store it as fat, where like it doesn't need to do that with the fat. It can use it like right away.
So a lot of the time what your body's doing is using some of that carb right away to get it out of the blood. So your blood cells are using them right away, and the parts of your brain that can use it is using it right away. But I mean, that's the extent, I think. There might be another part of your body, but like that's the extent. And then all the rest of that has to be stored in fat to then be used as fat for energy. Versus if you eat fat, it's either being used right away as energy or stored, but it doesn't need to be stored. If you actually need the energy to be used, it can use it. But of course, we're not going to pretend like fat doesn't get stored. It does, right? If I eat more than I needed for my day, some of it will be stored.
Okay.
This is the whole reason in the last video we were encouraging people eat to satiation, because if you eat past satiation, your body is storing the fat.
So don't get confused by the energy expenditure of burning carbs as being a positive thing. It's not a positive thing.
It's a horrible
It's
thing.
a horrible thing. Like you just want to get rid of it because like it's damaging to your system.
You know, I'll put it like this again, the whole idea that if you're comparing heating my house with electricity versus heating my house with wood, right? To heat my house with electricity, I turn on a click, heat. To heat my house with wood, I go outside in the winter, pick up a heavy piece of wood, go back inside the house, put it in the click, click, click. Oh, started the fire. Like all of that's energy that I'm giving to start energy for my house. Now, it's going to heat the house lovely. But guess what's going to happen in an hour? Got to go back outside, get it in a piece of. So if you're just looking at, like, if you imagine your body's doing that every time it wants to use a little bit of carbs, it has to trek outside, go come back inside. And remember, it's not going to use the furniture. So it's not touching the protein, right? It's either the carbs or the fat, electricity.
Yeah. Okay, so their conclusion, protein calories are less fattening than calories from carbs and fat because protein takes more energy to metabolize. Whole foods also require more energy to digest than processed food. The last part is true. But at the same time, like you said, protein is not an energy source. So I almost feel like they don't want to go there, but like what's your energy source is the fat along that protein, because you don't have carbs in those. If you have a nice piece of meat, like it's very little carbs you get in there. It's mostly fat.
My guess is the person that's using this information is not a scientist and does not understand that what they just wrote there. Although if you're talking about burning some protein versus burning, yes, of course, it's going to take more to burn, but our body doesn't burn protein. It uses protein. It's not the same thing. Right? And this is where, again, I find that people, they look at information in a way that, like, you're looking at it through a lens that you don't quite understand. That's not what our body does with the stuff, right? It's the sole reason that Dr. Fung uses this house analogy, because everybody understands you would not burn the furniture before the wood in the backyard. Everybody understands that. It's not logical, right? Because then in the summer, you're going to have to make more furniture, right? It's just logical. So your body doesn't do this. So like this idea that it's going to take more energy to metabolize it, it's not trying to use it as energy. Like, I guarantee you, if you are eating enough fat or carbohydrate to fuel your body is not using protein to fuel you. I can guarantee you that. And the only time that it's metabolizing your protein is when you have damaged old protein that needs to be taken apart for its parts to build new stuff. But that's not metabolizing it for energy. That's breaking it down to use it in a new process. And your body's going to do that regardless of whether you've eaten or not eaten, if it has the time to do it. Because that's the reason we get cancer and all those other things, right? Because if you don't give your body time to clean up, other problems happen.
And that's where fasting is so advantageous for us.
And when you fast, your body isn't breaking down your protein for food. I, right now, as I sit in front of you, have months worth of fat on me that I could just not eat, drink water, and I'm going to be fine. So don't think that if I fast tomorrow, I'm breaking down protein. I'm not.
And you're not going to lose your nice muscles there.
No.
Okay, cool.
Although I could be working on them more, but that's all.
Okay, number 3. Protein kills appetite and makes you eat fewer calories. Like that, this is like... So study shows that protein is by far the most filling macronutrient. But if you increase your protein intake, you start losing weight without counting calories or controlling portions. Protein puts fat loss on autopilot. I kind of feel like in that number 3 there, they confuse protein and fat.
Fat, yeah. So
it's the
most
fat that is going to do that.
people, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Most people, when they're eating more protein, there's fat in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yes, we need the protein to build and repair, and we need a good amount of protein. I mean, honestly, our body is constantly building and repairing if we give it time. Again, I keep going to that part. If we give it time, so we do need a good amount of protein and fat for the whole process to go appropriately. But the flip side of the coin is, most people, when you eat more protein, unless you're eating some kind of processed protein something, there's fat coming along with it. If you eat a steak, there's fat coming. Now, even if you eat lean ground beef, there's still fat in there. Even if you eat the chicken breast, there's still fat in there. Like, we need to understand that our body is going to get the energy that it needs from where it can get it from. And the average person who's going to be eating more protein, the average person, sometimes you're not doing keto, is still going to be eating some carbs, which is going to be an energy source. So your body's not going to break down the protein. Again, that idea that I'm going to use my protein as energy when there's carbs or fat there, no.
Let's hypothesize a little bit. You know, those high protein diet. Let's say I would just like have protein shakes all day long.
Protein shakes. Okay,
Yeah,
so
for example, you don't have the
fat
fat along the meat. So the question is like, then what, like, how is your body going to react to get energy since it's not coming from fat and it's not coming from carbs?
It's going to take it from you.
From your fat.
Right.
Okay.
We have fat. Like, this is the thing.
Okay.
If I eat nothing, my body is not going to take my protein.
Okay.
So what's going to happen? The protein's going to come in. Your body's going to use it as protein, and it's going to go to your body for the fat. So even if you do that, so people who live carnivore, right? People who live carnivore, I mean, again, they are eating an energy source. They're eating, but this again, because we know that this article is coming from someone who tends to be against low carb, they're not factoring in the fact that most people, if you increase your protein, you are increasing your fat. So I'm taking this with a grain of salt.
Okay. So their conclusion to number 3, increased protein can lead to drastically reduced appetite and cause automatic weight loss without the need for calorie counting and portion control. Like you said, sure, but more probably because of the added fat than the
But I
protein
agree with them.
itself.
I agree with them that if you're eating appropriately, you do not have to calorie count.
Yeah.
That we agree, and we've been saying that for a year and a half now. If you eat appropriately, you do not need to calorie count.
Yeah.
You need to carb count. Maybe. If you're doing carnivore, you don't even need to carb count. Like, honestly, if you're doing carnivore, like, I can tell you in all fairness, except for when we have salads or, like, when you cook for me, I have to carb count. When I cook for me, I never have to carb count because there's so few carbs on my plate. It's like, right? So it depends.
I'm not poisoning her people. I do make nice vegetables and don't worry.
He's trying to kill me.
Of course not. Okay, number 4. The satiety. My favorite word again. The satiety index. So satiety index is a measure of the ability of food to reduce hunger, increase feeling of fullness, and reduce calorie intake for the next few hours. So my question was, is there such thing as the satiety index? I know there's a glycemic index, but I know
we can
some foods are more filling than other ones. But like, so if you eat foods that are low on the satiety index, then you'll be hungrier and end up eating more. If you choose food that are high on the satiety index, you will end up eating less and losing weight.
First of all, my guess is that scientists can make indexes of whatever they want. So if they've created a satiety index, my guess, without hearing the rest of what you've just what you're going to say, is that things that will be high in fat will be high in satiety, because when you eat fatty foods, and we've said this a bunch of times, it's so hard to overeat steak. It's so hard to overeat pork chops because you're getting so much energy coming in, and especially if you eat it slowly, it's so hard to do that because as much as it might taste good, you do feel full faster because fat is very satiating. Like it just is. If you put a lot of dressing on your salad, you're going to feel much more satiated than if you just put a little bit of dressing on your salad. It's just the way it works. Carbohydrates, however, get stored away so quickly once you've eaten them because they are toxic to our system. And so therefore what happens is that you end up feeling hungry. And I mean, honestly, if you're feeling hungry within a little while, that means that you're going to say that that's low in satiation, right? I'm going to guess. So this is my guess. I haven't read the article.
You know, where I thought this like article was not super pro low carb or pro keto is in the example they give. So examples of food that are high on the satiety index: boiled potatoes. Oh, beef is there. I thought there was like no meat. So boiled potatoes, beef, not in particular order, I guess. Eggs, beans, and fruits. Fruits really on high satiety index. I can have like a whole watermelon and not feel full. But I think their assumption is that there are fibers in there that makes you feel fuller.
But I guess the question is though, is there actually a satiety index that we could look up and we're going to see that potatoes and beans and what was the other thing? Fruit are actually on it.
Yeah, eggs and beef. I know for sure like eggs is mostly protein and fat, and beef mostly protein and fat too. Problem with potatoes, I know maybe like they said they're high on the satiety index, but they're also high on the glycemic index, so be careful with that. But I do like what they compare it to the low satiety index, like what food are included, like donut, cakes, bread, so all the refined carbs, processed food. So
so they're going. So I guess what they're doing is whole foods versus processed foods. Processed foods falling on the low satiety. That makes sense. And I guess on some level, then I could agree with that. That if you take a processed food, for sure you're going to be hungry faster than if you take a whole food.
My understanding is that like all good meats like chicken, fish would be very high on the satiety index. But pasta, rice, like cereals, like
like so basically low. Anything processed.
Yeah. So
I mean, I guess I could go there with them. Does it matter? So the question. I guess if you want to feel satiated, you might be tempted to eat fruit, but we've already talked about the fact that fruit is so high in fructose and so bad for your system that it's like, is it worth it to eat it to feel satiated? It's a question mark.
Yeah. When I was doing my research on that particular topic, most like YouTube videos I was finding on the topic were how to feel fuller with less calories. But my question was like, does it really matter? Do you really need those food if you do a proper diet, whether it's a low carb or keto and whole foods? Where I feel with those videos were going was like, oh, to lose weight you need a calorie deficit, and like, so my question is like, does it really matter in the end? Like,
I have a bigger idea here, because like we're talking about a calorie isn't a calorie, and like for us, the reason that we focus on the fact that a calorie isn't a calorie is because calories are not what causes people to lose weight. Hormones cause people to lose weight, right? And so as soon as you start to understand that piece of the puzzle, it doesn't matter how many calories. The actual reality is that while I was losing weight, I was eating more calories than I was eating before, right? Like, I mean, actually eating them. Not just that my body was making up the difference. I was eating a lot of calories. So I find it interesting that people still look to this idea that I have to be in this calorie deficit and it's not reality. If you're following what they're saying, people are looking for, how do I feel full eating less? And the question then becomes, why are you trying to feel full? Why are you so focused on feeling full? That focus on fullness is what's actually pushing you to overeat. And when you overeat, as soon as I've overdone it, right? If I'm overeating, it means I've eaten too much, which means my body will have to store. Why do I want to put my body in a position where it has to store? That's exactly what I think I'm trying to get away from.
Like you say, it's better to have, like we're going to talk about calories, but a 2,000 calories where your body doesn't have to store versus a 1,500 calories where your body is storing all the time. That's like the whole idea behind here, that the calorie is not a calorie. Like in that case, 2,000 calories of healthy old foods is better than 1,500 calories of pasta and rice and breakfast cereals.
See, that's the other thing too, is like how quickly. So I don't know if you remember this, but like how quickly did I get to one meal a day?
Hmm.
And the thing that was so funny is that I got quickly to one meal a day because I allowed myself to eat until satiation and then go until I felt hungry again. Which eventually, if I'm eating a 2,000 calorie meal, I'm going to put the number on it because we did check in my tracker at one point to see how many meals in a week was I doing that were over 1,800, and most of them were like 2,000, 2,200
Yeah.
daily. Why? Because if I ate and then I wasn't hungry again until the next day at around the same time. So, and it's still the way that I eat till today. I eat one meal a day, period. Right? Because it's a big meal and it satiates me. And so if I'm eating 1,500 calories, but most of those calories are coming from carbohydrates, yes, I'm going to be hungry. So I'm going to be having these little meals of 1,500, so little meals of 500 here, 300 here, 700 here, but adding up to 1,500 for my day, but spending my entire day hungry. Guys, I can't, both of us, because when we're together, we do one meal a day. Like he does one meal a day when we're together. Like we have not eaten yet today. And guys, I cannot stress enough how it is 7:10 in the evening and we haven't had supper. I haven't even had a full coffee today. And neither of us, are you hungry?
Not yet. I'm fine.
Okay. And I'm fine.
Yeah.
If you eat to satiation and maybe yesterday did we eat yeah, but I mean, I do this every day. If you eat to satiation and you eat a low carbohydrate meal it has the good fats, and you're going to make it. Right? We're so worried that we're not going to eat enough, that we or that we're going to overeat, I should say, that we end up limiting ourselves to eating small amounts and trying to figure out how can I feel fuller, rather than just eat a healthy food, feel satiated, and know that I don't have to do that again till tomorrow. Guys, I do this every day. I'm not hungry in between, right? At some point, I'm going to feel hungry and I'm like, oh, it's time for supper. But it didn't happen yet. And honestly, the only reason it didn't happen yet today, well, no, it would have happened around 8. I'm probably going to be hungry somewhere around 8 because it's when I usually eat, right? Which crosses that other myth. Don't eat after, 6 or? Like, guys, honestly, I'm not telling you to eat after 6. You don't have to eat after 6. All I'm pointing out to you is that I eat when I feel hungry. I eat to satiation. I eat once a day. I make it to the next day. Sometimes I get to the next day and it happens where I'm like, I'm not really hungry. Am I eating today? And then I say, you know what? Screw it. Especially if I have to cook, screw it. I'm going to eat the next time, and I'll go to the next day. Why? Violet's lazy. She doesn't like to cook. And if I'm not actually hungry, why the heck am I making a meal? Especially if I can take my daughter to grandma's and grandma's going to feed her. Yay! I don't have to eat.
Lucky for you, I'm here once in a while.
But you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
we totally want you guys to understand that this kind of talk of like, how do I make myself feel fuller? Oh my goodness, stop aiming at full. Full is keeping you fat, because full is forcing you to constantly be chasing being full, eating what you're eating, which is now more carbs. And more carbs.
So conclusion number 4, different foods have different effects on satiety and and how many calories you end up consuming in subsequent meals. This is measured on a scale called the Satiety Index. So basically what they say is that, like, some food will make you feel fuller than others. What we say here is that, do prefer, like, do choose the healthier foods over like the pasta and grains and cereals and like.
And I
like
just want to add
foods.
before we. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just want to add before we move on. When we're looking at that, when Patrick says choose the healthier one, everything on the list except fruit.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to eat a potato, go for it, but try to keep the fruit off the list.
Okay, the next one, you're gonna love it.
Oh,
I loved it too. Number 5, low carb diets lead to automatic calorie restriction. So the results consistently show that low carb diets lead to more weight loss than low fat diets, often 2-3 times as much. One of the main reasons for this is that low carb diet leads to drastically reduced appetite. That's true. but not that drastically reduce calories. People start eating fewer calories without trying. So there's some truth and some like fallacies there where like I've heard that a bunch of times, like guys, that low carb diets equally means low calories, and it's not true because usually we do tend to eat a little bit more fat, and fat is way more calorie dense than carbs. So why are we always saying that low carbs mean fewer calories? That's not true. You just said it, like you never ate as much calories when you did like your keto when you were doing your keto lifestyle
until today.
And,
But I'm going to play their game because you know what, when you've done this long enough, you start to see the patterns. So I'm going to play their game. So they're saying that if you do a low carb lifestyle, your calories is going to come down drastically versus if you do a keto, a low fat lifestyle. So let's pretend for a second, because I mean, you just heard my story. My calorie number was actually high. Pat, was your calorie number high when you were doing it?
when I was doing keto, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
course, we were eating the same thing.
both of us had high calorie numbers, but I'm going to play their game because I want to show something. So you start at 2,000, and let's even pretend that on a keto lifestyle, I'm going to drop from 2,000 down to 1,300, and on a low fat, I'm going to drop from 2,000 down to 1,500. So keto was less. And now we're going through and we're going to do 6 months, because this is how long on a regular diet that when you drop your calorie count, right, and you're still eating standard way of eating, so you're still eating high carb, when you drop it down, your body is going to start recalibrating. And what's it going to do? After 6 months, your body is going to say, oh, so we're getting 1,500 calories. This is what it's going to be from now on, right? Because you were hungry. You were hungry that whole 1,500, 6 months. You were hungry. And so therefore, now you've recalibrated and on a regular diet in that period of time, so 6 months, and I'm even going to be generous and give you 2 pounds a month, you've now lost 12 pounds.
By hold on a second. By recalibrating, you just mean your metabolism adapted.
Yeah, your
to
metabolism
that. Okay,
is going to adapt. So I'm going to be generous and say you've lost 12 pounds. The average person who's trying to lose weight, if they're only trying to lose 12 pounds, yay, you've accomplished your goal.
You fit in your bikini.
And now you need to keep eating 1,500. But the average person did not want to just lose 12 pounds. Typically, you want to lose 20, 30, 40. So now what's happening? I have to take a decision. Am I bringing my carbs down even lower? Or sorry, my calories down, even lower? Because that's what I would need to do now, because my body has said this is what Violet eats. Versus over here, let's pay attention to what's happening here. I took my carb count down, and so my calorie count went down with it to 1,300. My body was used to getting 2,000 calories worth of energy. So what does my body do? It starts taking the 700 calories from Violet. So did I actually change the amount of energy that my body was getting? No.
It's getting for you.
Now, here's what's interesting. As I move forward and I start eating more and more this way, so this is the 6 months happening now. So over here, I'm hungry and I'm struggling to stay at 1,500. Over here, I'm getting used to this way of eating and I'm not hungry, as they clearly point out. And my body is taking fat from me. And guess what? Now I start to be in this position where, of course, so let's say even just pretend that I stay at 12. I didn't. He didn't. I don't know anybody who did. But like nobody stayed there, right? But let's pretend that I did stay there at 1,300 is what I said. What happens 6 months later? Violet keeps going forward because I'm not hungry. And a year, right? Like I had probably a year and a half worth when I first started this game, right? Of energy on me. I still have months, by the way, people. But, right? So I just keep going forward until I reach the weight that I want to be. And guess what my body's going to do at that point? It's going to stop pulling fat from me, right? What's going to happen if my body stops pulling fat from me? This whole time I was eating to satiation. That's what we're talking about, right? The whole time I was eating to satiation. So when my body stops pulling fat from me, what's Violet going to actually end up doing? Eating more energy. Till what number? That magic calorie number we were talking about, 2,000. Because that's what my body was used to using. That's what my body has been using this entire time. And it will resume using 2,000 calories. Just that now I will actually need to eat it. So will my plate get a little bigger, or will I start going back for seconds? Yes. Will I gain any weight? which is my story. I'm living this story right now, people. And I know lots of people who are living this story. I have lots of people that have accomplished it. They didn't add any carbohydrates back to stop the weight loss. They started to eat more fat, right? They continued in their keto way of eating, just more of it, because my body isn't taking from me anymore.
But where they're right is that on a keto, low carb, let's say even a keto, you're not spiking your insulin. It's always the same thing. You're not spiking your insulin. It's hormones. You're not spiking your insulin, so you're not hungry. Also, that's why you eat to satiation. Really? I know it's my word. So you eat to satiation and you're not feeling hungry. Yes, you might eat a little bit less calories because you're not feeling hungry all the time. So
but even at that, the reality is you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, even at that, the reality is I've not met anybody doing keto, but they might exist. I'm not going to say that. I've not met anybody doing keto, and during their journey that they were eating less than normal, right? Less frequently, yes. But the totality, when they actually track what they're eating and look at the numbers, the calorie number was high. Because you're eating a lot of fat. The calorie number is high. But the good part is that because fat doesn't cause us to gain weight the way that carbs do, you can eat a lot more energy and still use the energy and then still pull energy from yourself, because it's a hormone thing. This is all about hormones. And this is the part, the thing that people ignore. And now as I'm talking, I'm remembering, because I have to think back, because we're going back a long time. But the thing that people ignore, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to ask you after, because I remember how much energy I had. How easy it was for me to play outside with the kids and to do stuff, how much more longboarding we were doing in the summer, how much more skiing we're doing. And we would go skiing, and at the end of the day, we weren't exhausted. We had more energy. The thing that people ignore is that if you eat properly, even though you're eating a bit more, you're going to use the energy because it's easily accessible to your body. And so you end up being more clear-headed. Your brain uses the most of the energy. We don't understand how much our brain uses energy. That mental clarity that everybody's talking about, that takes a lot of energy to push, right? That energy that you get up in the morning and you're just boom out of bed and boom, and you're all of that takes a lot of energy to push. So when you end up eating more calories from fat, because you're using that energy, it's a clean source, as we said earlier, a clean source that your body actually can use. And so yes, it's the weirdest of weird things. You're eating a lot of energy, your body's still pulling energy from you. This is where I come back to, I don't think that, I know I was eating around 2,000 calories throughout my weight loss and still losing. So my body, because why? Because honestly, I do a lot of stuff, right? We play with our kids. We are not that family that, oh, guys, go outside and we're inside watching TV. We play with our kids. We go for walks. We're doing stuff. So I think that's part of the story. People talk about this and say, oh yeah, it's because you're decreasing. No, you use more energy because you have it to use. And it feels amazing. And I'm sure you remember it too.
Oh yeah, for me it was honestly the thing that was the most noticeable, not falling asleep in the afternoon for my meetings. It was, even if my number of hours of sleep didn't change. I don't get enough. I always have around 6:30, but just not being able, just not falling asleep, in meetings after lunch. Even so, it was even better not having lunch actually, because before was breakfast, lunch, supper, and so after lunch was really rough. But with one meal a day, no problem.
Every time you mention that part, it's funny to me how I remember it. But but only when you mention it. I have my own office. If I would have had a stretch of 2 or 3 hours where I didn't have a client, I had to stand up at my desk to not fall asleep. Right? Versus now, I never feel tired during the day. As a matter of fact, as you're saying, the number of hours we get, because we're constantly doing and doing and doing, and then it's oh, we should really go to bed. Right? It's crazy how much energy you end up having. And it's also crazy how soundly you sleep. It's the other thing. And I don't know why this happens. You sleep so nice and deep. And so anyways,
Yeah.
like, ugh.
Conclusion to number 5. Low carb diets consistently lead to more weight loss than low fat diets.
Yes.
Yes, even when calories are matched between groups.
Yes.
So the conclusion, like, kind of like, is
I agree
better
with
than.
that. So.
Okay, number 6, glycemic index. The one few things that almost everyone agrees, like whether you low carb, keto, high protein, is that refined carbs are bad.
Yes.
So pasta, processed food. So this includes added sugars like sucrose, high fructose, corn syrup, as well as refined grain product like white bread. Refined carbs tend to be low in fiber and are digest and absorbed like really quickly, leading to rapid spikes in blood sugar, insulin spikes. They have a high glycemic index, which is a measure of how quickly food raises blood sugar. So all of this is true. So I was really happy with that number 6, because it's like I didn't see anything like false in that. So the more processed is the food, the higher the insulin and blood sugar spike, and triggers hunger. You want more and everything.
I honestly, I don't think I heard
So-
anything in there that wasn't.
What we could have here, avoid refined carbs.
They're not telling you why. So I'm just gonna say, like, the reason that your blood sugar spikes and then crashes. So crashes as if insulin steps in and
Oh.
takes that sugar out because it will poison you, puts it away as fat. So yes, like what they're ignoring, or what they're not telling you is that spike and crash is actually your body storing fat, making you
protecting you.
fatter
Yeah.
on your diet.
And protecting you. Like,
Yes, of course, protecting you.
A defense mechanism.
It is a defense mechanism, but I mean, just pointing out, like, on your low fat diet, your body is storing fat. Isn't that exactly the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish? Versus on a low carb diet, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So just pointing that out.
It's always like amazes me when I talk to friends that go to the gym and they need a carb load up before their session, like having a spaghetti because they need the energy to go do those benches. And like even once I tried to explain to him, like, first of all, the meal you just ate is not available as energy right now. It needs to be processed. And I was just trying to explain him like the like just the simple mechanism of like insulin, store fat, and he was wondering why isn't he losing fat? Whereas I have another colleague that he's not doing keto, but like the other day he's like a CrossFit addict. Like he does CrossFit like 6 times a week, and he's old. Like I think he's close to 60. I think he's 55, 56, and honestly I'm kind of jealous of his shape. And he went, like, lately he wanted to bring his fat number super low, like going from, it was at maybe 25 down to 19, 18, which is really amazing for a man, especially that age. And I was like, oh, okay, give me some clues, like what, because he's seen by a nutritionist, and I was kind of worried. And what he told me was his diet is a really precise diet and not really keto, but definitely low carb.
Okay.
So like 80% chocolate as a treat, some oatmeal, I think, once in a while, but like most of his meals were meat and vegetables. So really, and he was like able to lower his fat percentage, like, and the other one, like, is carb loading before every gym session, like 5-6 times a week, and like he doesn't successfully lower his fat percentage. So that's kind of like funny. People are still have in their mind that
funny, sad.
funny, sad, yeah, but like people are like often still thinks that low fat is the way to go, where it's like that damaging our poor kids and our people. So conclusion, study shows that refined carbs lead to faster and bigger spikes in blood sugar, which leads to cravings and increased food intakes.
I have to agree with that. So, I mean, this is a very interesting article. I think the basic idea, though, does show that a calorie isn't equivalent, like getting your energy. I hate calling it calories. Getting your energy from fat is a better way to go than getting your energy from carbohydrates. And I feel like that's what this basically comes down to.
Sorry to cut you off, but like it's even like through carbs to carbs, like
Yep.
a for example, like a calorie from sweet potato is better for your system than a calorie from chocolate, for example, where there's a ton of added sugar.
And also
That's
from
like
fruit.
from fruit too, yeah.
Yeah.
So we got it. A calorie is not a calorie in the end. So
Yeah, really it isn't. This was fun because it was nice to look at an article that was giving some good information, but we still had some corrections to make. That's okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for watching Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet, Pat Chat Edition. Love making these videos for you guys. Teespring, Patreon in the description below. Can't wait to talk to you guys again next week.
I'll talk to you next week.